Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Lara, and on this channel I do book reviews. And in this video I will be doing a review on a book series. This series has 5 books in it, and it is the Selection series by Kiera Cass. And so the first one is the series title, The Selection. Then the second one is The Elite. The third one is The One. The fourth one is The Heir. And the fifth one is The Crown. And there is a novella or a short story that goes along that's like a companion to this series. And that one is called Happily Ever After. I have not read that one, but I might eventually get around to it. But that is all 5 of those books, and I will be doing like a quick synopsis of all 5 of them. And so for this quick overview, for in the first book we meet America and her family, and in this series is kind of based on a society that I guess you can say has faced some sort of collapse, and then a I don't want to say reunification because I don't know if that's the right word, but we see a form of living in the US that is a caste system or a numbering system, kind of similar to Evelyn's number, how the country was based on your number, and your number dictated how well off you were or how poor you were. And so, kind of a similar concept. And so, depending on your number, was how well off or not well off you were. We meet America, and in the first 3 books, it is about America and her family and her journey to the end goal of winning the heart of Prince Maxim. So in the first book, we meet her. She is in love with a boy named Aspen, who is a caste or a number lower than her. And she's already kind of on a lower number. So she's kind of like middle to lower caste. And so she's wanting to marry this boy Aspen, but they're dating in secret because dating outside of your number realm was frowned upon. But there is a competition called the Selection, of course, that whenever there is an eligible prince at a certain age, then there will be a huge, of course, selection of all the eligible girls or women, young women, and then the girls are they put their names in to be considered to then go to the palace to win the prince's heart. And so eventually it gets whittled from several hundreds of girls to 35 girls. And those 35 girls are then handpicked by the prince. I don't remember if it was blindly or like he went through the file that they sent in and selected them that way. But nonetheless, they're all 35 of them were selected, and then they all get sent to the palace to live with the royal family. And America doesn't really want that, but she knows that it might help her family out in their living situation. But she still loves Aspen. We see first book kind of going through the whole process, the selection process, and her getting sent to the palace, and her meeting the prince and starting the whole get to know him and romance side of it. And then the second one, we see that the 35 girls are whittled down slowly throughout book one, and then in book two, eventually those girls are whittled down to 6 girls who the prince will then start being able to spend more time with them. And all this time, all during this process, the country is in turmoil because of the number system, and those lower on the in the system are wanting to, I guess, get rid of the whole like castes and numberings and stuff. And so there's kind of like war almost brewing. And of course, all during this time, there are other countries like France, England, and that kind of country, but they're obviously named different, to a small degree differently in the book for continuity. And we see in book two how America is starting to come into her own. Come to find out, Aspen gets drafted into the military and is then placed on guard duty at the palace. And so America gets to see Aspen more, and she is trying to figure out if she still wants to be with Aspen, or if she wants to be with the prince, who she is starting to get feelings for, but she still doesn't know who she wants to be with. So she's having a really hard time. And there is kind of like starting to get, I guess you can say, a love triangle, because the prince is really starting to like America. America is, like I said, torn between Aspen and the prince. And then obviously Aspen really likes America. And so it's that kind of like love triangle aspect to it. And then eventually in book 3, the one, she finally comes out with the secret of her and Aspen secretly dating, in like back in book 1 to the prince, and that she still had some feelings for Aspen, and the prince obviously is heartbroken about it. And there's other things that are going on that makes Prince Maxim really question who America really is. But then they finally get down to the prince selecting the one person that he's going to marry. And then that leads us into the heir. And so the heir jumps forward about 18 years, approximately. There could be a few years in there that I don't remember. And so this book picks up where the prince in the first 3 books and the one he chose have already gotten married, and they have several kids. Their first is a set of twins, and the first that is born is a girl, and the second born is a boy. It's about Princess Adeline, who in this series, princesses are married off to other princes of other countries, versus like in the first 3, the prince was able to have a selection. But Princess Adeline wants to flip that on its head, and she also wants to hold a selection because the country that they are ruling over is very extremely unsettled. Like, even after all the castes and the numbering system have been wiped out, they're still having to deal with the fallout of that clearing of the numbers. And so Edlin thought that maybe having a selection for her would help calm the unrest. And so, even though she is very spoiled and very bratty in this book, she wants to make sure that while her parents are still alive, that she can then help settle everything down, and that when she goes to the throne, everything will be good. So she's like, okay, let me do my own selection, see if that will help. But it doesn't really help at all. But this time, instead of the 35 suitors coming from just within their own country, they were able to have someone who was from a different Swedenia, I think that the country is called. Of course, everyone can kind of guess that that's kind of the same thing as Sweden. At least I took it as a synonym for Sweden in the real world. And she's having to a translator to talk to that specific suitor, but everyone else knows the same language. And then that leads into The Crown, which is the last book. And that, in this last book, kind of concludes down to Princess Edlin eventually chooses her person that she wants to get married to. But it's not without a ton of unrest from the country, from everyone else around her, and all that. And so that was a quick kind of, I guess, very quick synopsis of the books or the series. And so for the first book, The Selection, I rated it a 4-star. The Elite, which is the second one, I also gave it a 4-star. The One, a 4-star. The Heir, a 3-star. And then the last one, The Crown, I gave it a 4-star. And so for The Selection, what I really liked was how like strong-willed America was, who and that she was willing to stand up to the bully of the king, because the king was so set in his ways, and he thought that America was pretty much he viewed her as a rebel, and that she needed to be put out like a flame. And so he was trying to get her to leave or to quit or to have the prince kick her out. And so I really liked how she was starting to realize how much of a bully the king is. I liked that. What I didn't really like was how, I understand why she was still so caught up with her first secret boyfriend, Aspen. I understand why she was still hung up on him, because they were planning on getting married, and they loved each other. And so I kind of understand why she was still so, I guess, pining for him. But at the same time, I'm like, girl, yes, you are encouraged by him and by your family to go to the selection. Still, you chose to go do that. Albeit you didn't think you'd be picked. But anyways, so that's what I liked and didn't like about the first one. What I liked about the second one was that she's starting to realize certain things about her, how strong of a woman she is, and that she does have an opinion about a lot of things, though sometimes they could get her in trouble with not only the king but with her family. And so I did like how much she was willing to push for what she thought was right, and how she was willing to talk to others about that. What I didn't like about this was that it seemed like she was almost wanting to, I guess, still try and have some sort of relationship with Aspen while he's on guard duty, and that, like, she knows that she's still in the game of the selection, and that she's had conversations with the prince of him telling her, hey, like, I might choose you, but I don't know. I definitely did not like how she was still keeping the whole dating Aspen in secret a secret. And what I also didn't really like was how abusive the king was to the prince. Both, like, he was verbally abusive, emotionally, like, any type of abuse, like, the king did towards the prince. And so we didn't actually see it spelled out. Some of the types of abuse we don't see spelled out word for word, but some of it we do read about, and then others we do see, like, after the fact, like how the king whipped him and caused his back to bleed and caused scarring and that kind of thing. And so, because I am more sensitive to that kind of thing, I didn't really like that, especially in a series where it does seem like it is more of a lighthearted, fun, young adult, teen type series. And so I didn't like how that aspect was so upfront. And then eventually we get to the one. I liked that America continues to grow in her own, and how she still, no matter what the king tries to do to her, she continues to push back and do her best to really share and show how the people are struggling. And then for the Heir, what I did like was about the book transitioning to 20 years later to the prince becoming king and him having his wife and them having all the kids. I liked and enjoyed the fact that the daughters having to really start to put in difficult decisions and starting to realize how she can't still be the little carefree princess that she grew up being, and that she's having to really start realizing and becoming someone who is willing to put her life on hold and be a servant leader. But what I did not like about the Heir was how spoiled rotten and just how much she was just all about herself. Yes, there were moments where she was more concerned about her siblings and her parents, especially when her mom would show signs of being sick. Yes, she had those, like, signs of being caring, but she was definitely overall very spoiled and very much me, and very closed off to anything that was suggested about her getting married and all that. Like, I get it. A lot of people don't want to get married or have aversions towards marriage and all that. But it just seemed like she just was so adamant against it, even though she knew that she needed to at some point. That's what I did and didn't like about the Heir. So that was book 4. And then book 5, The Crown. I liked that that Adlin finally starts realizing how pressure and how hard it is to be a public figure and to really put other people's feelings and desires in front of her own. Yes, there is still some, like, selfishness, but she is definitely getting a lot of pushback from her suitors. And so I really liked that. What I didn't like about this last one was that she was still a little bratty, but still at the same time that brattiness and that stuck upness like made sense because of just kind of knowing, I guess, more information as I continued reading. And I guess that's kind of like why I didn't like her spoiledness in the fourth book, because I of how her mom was, and so, but yeah, so that, oh, but overall I would recommend this series to really anyone, but it would be with the warning of there is some, I guess, trigger content within it, especially in book, like some in book one, but especially two, book two and on. But yeah, I enjoyed this series. Overall, I would give it about a 3.5. I know 4 out of the 5 books I did rate 4 star, but I think overall I would honestly rate this series 3.5 star. Not saying that that makes this series bad, but I I would still read it, but I may not be very quick in picking it back up. And so this may be another one, some of those books that just is lower on the reread list. But I will for sure want to at least pick up the companion book, Happily Ever After, to kind of read that and to see how that like adds more to the series. But yeah, so that was my thoughts and my ratings on the selection series. And if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you have read this series or had any questions, please feel free to comment down below. Um, and if you want to see any more of my book reviews, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification. And I will see y'all in the next one. Bye.